Hello, everybody. I'm closing things on my computer, and you needed to know that. Good. Okay, I'm on the right network. Huzzah. Hang on, I'll be with you in just a moment. Your being here is very important to me. Please stay on the line. Yeah, I'm closing a bunch of stuff because I don't want anything to slow my computer down, and I just realized now I'm totally afraid that I'm going to close this window. So I think we're done. Hi, everybody. Who's here? Chuck's here. Good to see you. Oh, John's doing the roll call. There we go. Matthew, Randy, Frank, Hank. No relation. Chuck, I think I said that. John, who is me, but not me. I think John means he's John. Eric, Webb, just a drive by. Rob, Donna, and a few newer faces. Well, who are the new faces? Well, anyway, good to see you all. Sorry I'm like a minute or two late. It's that thing where, well, you've been here before. Why don't we get started and then we'll talk later? We'll talk later. Yeah. It's good to see everybody. Let's do this. The Call of the Apple Road and Optimism. Thy name is Rod Hall. It is Monday, the 21st of December, 2020, and this is macOS Ken Live. I listen to that music even when I can't hear that music. It's just a thing I do. Hi, everybody. Welcome into another edition of macOS Ken Live. I'm Ken Ray. Thanking you very much for joining us for this. What's going to be a short week of shows. It's going to be a short week of shows all over the place, but they're going to be all over the place. So fine. Second half of the show, we'll talk about Rod Hall, who I had thought I was going to cut some slack today. And then I was reading more of his stuff and I was like, well, I don't know if I am or not. I mean, I'm not beating up on the guy. Well, we'll get to it in the second half of the show. First half of the show, though, let's go for a ride, as Cracker said. Bad poetry to start tomorrow's macOS Ken. I thought about doing the bad poem here, but then I realized, first of all, I would be self-conscious doing it live. And second, it gives everybody who's listening to the live show something to look forward to on tomorrow's macOS Ken. Bad poetry, sort of tied to the first story in tomorrow's macOS Ken, sort of tied to today. It was supposed to be about Apple Car, but it never really got there, which may give it something in common with Apple Car. I'm not saying there's not going to be an Apple Car because that would be ridiculous of me to do, but there's not necessarily going to be an Apple Car either. Reuters hit with the story this afternoon about the Apple Car. They, said Apple's working on it, which we've known for. See, I would have sworn it was a longer time than they said. Apple Insider actually wrote up the Reuters piece, and they say that Apple has been working on the Apple Car, that it's been rumored since 2014. Now, maybe I'm conflating a bunch of stuff because I remember going to Macworld with Laura Burstein and Scott Shepard and all those people back when I was still doing Inside Mac, and there being talk of an Apple Car then. But I think that was just people saying, gosh, wouldn't it be neat if one day, right? According to Apple Insider, official scuttlebutt, if there is any such thing as official scuttlebutt, has been since 2014, which means only about 6.5 years. I'd have sworn 9. Because this feels like the story that just won't die, that won't go away. Now, I think it actually hit really big back when I was doing. Why am I trying to tell you when I remember it hitting? It doesn't matter because Apple Insider said 2014, and I believe them because they, have been doing this actually longer than I have. So even if they don't remember, they can just go and really quickly pull up stories, right? So within an hour of Reuters saying that Apple is looking to roll out an Apple Car by 2024, I got like 4 emails from people extremely excited, or at least they seemed extremely excited, although none of them told me why they were excited. Try to figure out why I might be excited, why I might not be excited. We'll talk about that in just a little bit. Let me tell you really quickly I don't even want to say what we think we know because we don't really know anything. We know what Reuters has told us. It's going to be a passenger car, according to people that Reuters talked to. The battery is going to be absolutely amazing. Somebody quoted in the piece, who I'm assuming is a power nerd, and I don't mean that in any dismissive way, but they said that they said that seeing the battery for, I mean, what Apple is working on right now is going to be like the first time you saw the iPhone. And no offense, sir or madam, but no, I mean, it just can't be. I mean, maybe it will be if you're that into batteries. Maybe it will be if you're that into power sources. And maybe it will be if you're that into cars. But I mean, a battery is still going to be a battery. It may be an awesome battery. And from everything that they're saying in this article, I think it probably really is an awesome battery. But I mean, there was nothing like the iPhone. This is something like a much better battery, perhaps. I'm not saying it's not groundbreaking. I'm saying don't oversell it. Not that it's that person's job to sell it anyway. Anyway, the battery is going to be amazing. One of the other things we know, issues related to COVID-19 may push production into 2025, which is depressing because it's the end of 2020. You would think, but then again, you're talking about something as big as, manufacturing a car. That is not something you throw together last minute. That's not something you throw together in 6 months. And so even though we're talking about something that is at least 3 years out, to say, well, actually, things are so screwed up right now that it could push it to 4 years out, kind of a bummer. And that actually plays into what we'll talk about in the second half of the show. But you know what? We're not there yet. The other thing we know is what everybody ever says about anything sort of speculative or early rumor about Apple. They might change their mind. So Reuters hits with a piece saying that Apple is planning on releasing a car in 2024, with, of course, a caveat in there that they might not. Also, it's possible that they will make self-driving systems for other car makers instead, right? Now, even in there is some nuance as far as let's assume everything goes perfectly. Let's assume everything goes exactly the way it's supposed to go, and then it's 2024 and Apple cars are rolling off the line. What line are they rolling off of? Is Apple likely to, pull a Tesla and start making its own cars, which I've heard some people say they think Apple would do. This Reuters piece, or this Apple Insider piece from this Reuters piece, says it's more likely that Apple would actually tap a third-party manufacturer to partner to build the vehicles. Really, though, it's the battery. I mean, the whole thing about this is the battery. According to this person that they talked to, the center of Apple's vehicular strategy, which is my car's cover band, by the way, vehicular strategy. Look for us at the Glass Onion. The center of Apple's vehicular strategy is a new battery design that could radically cut battery costs and increase the range of the Apple car. The battery will be based on a monocell design that would allow engineers to bulk up the individual cells in the battery and free up space within a battery pack. That design would mean more active materials, which could result in a longer range. Now, that is a serious selling point. I think that is a really serious selling point for anybody who's already had an electric car. I have a friend who has a Tesla, and he and I went on an excursion one time that, according to maps, is 107 miles. We stopped to charge. I want to say we stopped to charge twice. We might have only stopped to charge once on this 107-mile trip. And here's the thing. We didn't need to stop to charge, except that my friend, when he drives in his Tesla, is constantly freaked out about running out of charge. So if he's going more than to the store, if he's going one town over or two towns over or even 100 miles, if the battery gets down to like half, he wants to stop. Even though the battery, I think, wasn't even close to half. He paid a lot to worry that much, I gotta say. It's better for the environment too, because he's not buying gas and all that stuff. But I mean, really, the center of his going places is how fast he can go, how long he can leave it on auto drive, whatever, which I think you're not supposed to do, but he did. And then where can he stop to charge up again? So that's great. I said earlier, I tried to figure out what would make me excited about this thing. I'm trying to figure out actually what problems Apple would be solving here. I mean, they solved the problem of AI cars, but lots of people are working on AI cars. And assuming anybody gets it right, am I going to know the difference between Apple's AI car and anybody else's AI car unless it's about the design? Now, Tim Cook did say at one point that Apple views self driving cars or autonomous vehicles as the biggest AI challenge out there. It's part of the reason they put John Giannandrea, one assumes, in charge of the whole AI car thing at this point. If he thinks that's the biggest problem you can solve, then maybe they're going ahead and trying to solve the biggest problem, assuming that they'll be able to solve other problems more easily. Maybe. I mean, solving the battery issue is an interesting one. And if Apple can come up with battery technology that they can then, sell to a bunch of other car makers, that's kind of an interesting one, I guess. Doesn't really seem like Apple's thing, but maybe. And then finally, cars as a service could fit nicely into Apple's huge and growing push into services. That honestly seems like the one that makes, well, I don't know. That one makes sense to me, but that's because I believe in Uber and Lyft. Except I would like it if they didn't, mistreat their workers. But of course, Apple's car is not going to have any workers. So which is better? Honestly, I don't know which is better. I get into a debate with a friend of mine quite often. Actually, she says that Uber should be treating its drivers as an employees, and I kind of agree with that. Except the cool thing about driving for Uber is you can just stop anytime you want to. You don't have a shift, so you can stop halfway through your shift, or you can take as many shifts as you want. There's a certain amount of freedom there. At the same time, I want everybody to get paid. It would be great if everybody could afford health insurance. It would be great if everybody could afford the kind of benefits that we all grew up thinking we were going to have, the kind of benefits that some people in Washington seem to think that we still have, even though they're doing nothing about legislating them and making sure that we get paid enough to get them. But I digress. The 4 people who emailed me did not email me about why they were excited. And so I went to Twitter and said, right, some people are excited. Nobody's telling me why. Why don't you tell me why you're excited? I got 2 responses. One was Oliver Haslam over at iMore saying, I'm not excited. You should tell Ken why I'm wrong. I wrote back to Oliver and said, well, tell me why you're not excited because I'm fine with that too. And he ghosted me. Thanks, Oliver. I also heard from Randy. Because like I said, I put up the thing there that said, people are telling me excited. Nobody's telling me why. Tell me why you're excited. And Randy said, I actually hate this story and I hate this idea. But I'm not a crazy one, a misfit, a rebel, and usually not a troublemaker, says Randy. I see this as moving into a whole new area of liability. You think you have problems slowing down a phone, start slowing down cars, or worse, not stopping them. So I actually wrote back to him because I was curious. I asked if he liked the idea more of Apple Car as a service, something you join or something you use rather than a thing that you buy. And he asked, as in Uber? No, I'm in a small college town. It would be rural if not for the college. I have to have a car and a truck, he says. Besides, I just don't understand moving past Apple CarPlay. Building systems for cars, sure. Building cars, whether to sell or rent, I don't get that. So says Randy. Which took me back to wondering what it is that might excite me about the whole thing. I don't really have a great answer. I got to say, I don't think Tesla is today, because look, when I go back to that conversation that I was having with the people from Inside Mac in 2005 at Macworld, the greatest thing Apple had going for it at the time, or one of the greatest things anyway, was design. I mean, you could argue that the greatest thing was Steve Jobs, but certainly one of the greatest things it had going for it was design. And while Apple can still design a pretty machine, do they have anybody that can design stuff the way that Johnny Ive can? Now, it's also possible that a Johnny Ive car would look like crap. But I'm thinking about when Tesla was early on, they had a really beautiful little sports car. And we might now just be speaking to my personal taste in cars. If you've got a little 2-seater coupe, especially convertible, you've got my attention. I can't help but stop and look at like a little Mazda, or what was the old wasn't it like a who had the Del Sol? I can't remember. I don't need it to be fancy. It doesn't have to be something that James Bond would drive. Just like a little car like that really gets my attention. Sedans are boring to look at. I mean, they're great. They're what you need sometimes. Hatchbacks are great. They're what you need sometimes, but they tend to be fairly bland looking. I would expect an Apple car to look amazing, but I would have expected Teslas to look amazing, and Teslas now look kind of plain. And again, they're everywhere now, so maybe they're not as eye-catching because they're everywhere, or at least the last couple of places, last couple of cities I've lived in have had them. I don't know. Honestly, for me, I think the service would be what would be more interesting because I'm happiest when I don't have a car, honestly. If I live in some place that has good public transportation or some place that's big enough where there is a, Uber or Lyft or some place that could support an Apple car or a fleet of Apple cars or something like that, I think that's where I personally would be happiest. But, that's just me. I've never owned a brand new car. And maybe that's part of it too. Maybe if I was in the habit of buying brand new cars, I wouldn't see them as, what's that place? Brigadoon? Is that the place that like shows up when you need it or whatever? Maybe a brand new car is like something that doesn't register in my head because I haven't had one. And so I hear about it. I'm like, well, that'll be fun for some people. I still don't know the problem it would solve. Then again, what problem does, AirPods Max solve? And that's only $500. Apple Watch solves problems. iPhone solves problems. Computers continue to fill a product category that has been solving problems for decades. You could argue that the AirPods don't really solve a problem, although there's constant talk of putting, sensors in them and things like that that would actually make them more beneficial from a medical standpoint. They potentially can solve problems. Right now, I wouldn't go so far as to say, well, yeah, I guess you could say that they're luxury items. I don't know what problem the Apple car solved. Maybe it doesn't have to solve a problem, though. Maybe it's okay for it to be, a pretty fun thing that Apple gets into so that we can all get into one from time to time. I would love to hear your thoughts on the Apple car, on the possibilities of the Apple car. Are you excited about actually buying one of these things that doesn't exist yet? Are you excited more by it being a service? Are you excited about the problems it might solve? I would love to hear your answers to those questions, and the best way to do that is to email me, info@macosken.com, info@macosken.com. You can also leave a comment on this video. Email would be best, but whichever way you want to is fine. So leave a comment here or info@macosken.com. This is the part of the show where I usually say, hey, it would be great if you would do this other thing or listen to this other thing, but, kind of winding down for the holidays. So probably the thing I would suggest is go back and listen to some of the episodes of the checklist that we've done, especially over the past couple of weeks. Although we're getting so close to the end of the holiday season, I don't know if there's much point in talking about safety with holiday shopping. I mean, at this point, the safest thing you can do about holiday shopping is don't. Because, yeah, the whole, COVID thing. I'm sorry, I don't mean to laugh. I just like, every time I go to the store, they play these. I go to the grocery store once a week. And every time I go to the store, they're playing this thing that says, to help fight the virus, but they don't say what virus. Every now and then I just want to go, there's a virus, Sorry, that's my sick sense of humor while I'm out in the middle of a bunch of people. Anyway, listen to the checklist. That's what I was saying. Wow, that went off the rails quickly. Could be worse. I could be reading bad poetry at you. Tomorrow's macOS Ken. Tell your friends. Right, let's talk really quickly about Rod Hall. I had seen something earlier today that I thought, maybe I've been misunderstanding Rod Hall. I've since changed my mind on that. There was an article in Apple Insider that said Apple's Mac gained market share in growing PC market. Apple Mac revenues rose 50% year over year in the third quarter of 2020 as global PC unit shipments increased 18%, driven largely by continued work from home and remote learning trends. Now, all of this seems to have been picked up in a note from Rod Hall, Goldman Sachs analyst Rod Hall, who he's not a punching bag. He's more like an interesting thought exercise for me at this point. I don't understand why. I don't understand why. He's got Apple at a sell and a price target of $75. I forgot to check before I came on what Apple's price is today, but I want to say they were around 122 on Friday. And the last time I checked today, they were down like 9 cents. So they're in the 120s, right? And they're crushing it with iPhone, or at least they seem to be. We don't really know for certain because Apple doesn't release those numbers. And even if they did release those numbers, we're halfway through a quarter anyway. And so they won't release them in the middle of a quarter. We know that, I think it was Counterpoint Research. This is a story that will be on macOS Ken tomorrow. That the iPhone 12 is the number one 5G phone in the world, or was in October anyway. Even though it was far from the first 5G phone, it's what people were waiting for. Goes back to a conversation I had years ago when somebody said what people want is a 4G iPhone when Apple sort of waited on 4G. Somebody said to me, what people want is a 4G phone. And I said, no, what people want is the next iPhone, because the next iPhone crushed other 4G phone sales. And then when Apple felt like the time was right to release a 4G phone, they did. And then that crushed all the other 4G phones out there. So not surprising that the top two 5G phones in October were both iPhones, though they were only released halfway through the month. iPhone 12 and iPhone 12 Pro are the two top selling 5G phones last month, according to Counterpoint Research. So they're crushing it on that. They're crushing it on wearables. They're crushing it on services. Now they're crushing it on Macs. And he's got to sell in a price target of $75. And here's where I thought I might be able to cut him some slack. This is also from a piece in Apple Insider. While near-term demand indications are strong, we continue to be cautious on PC demand looking into fiscal year 2021 as COVID-driven replacement acceleration begins to wane and comparisons get more difficult. I'm not cutting him slack there, but he's absolutely right. I think. I shouldn't say he's absolutely right, but that makes sense. June, July, August, when we all realize we're not going back to work anytime soon, probably actually earlier than that, April, May, June, people start going out and buying better computers because they're sitting on the things all the time. They need them more. Either that or they were sent by their boss to get them, or their boss sent them a computer or whatever. And so you see a sharp uptick through this year in Mac sales that's probably not going to be there next year because people will have just replaced their computers last year. Here's the part where I thought I could cut him some slack and then had to change my mind. We believe that this shift is likely to move in the other direction as vaccine deployment drives reopening in 2021. That this shift is likely in turn to put incremental pressure on PC demand by the middle of next year. Middle of next year is going to be a tough comparison. I don't think there can be much question about that. We will see. If he thinks we're going back to work by the middle of next year, he's nuts. And I hate to say that. It makes me sad. It makes me angry. I'm excited about the vaccine. I'm not excited about getting a shot. I'm not excited about getting 2 of them, but I'm excited about the possibilities of it. But if he thinks this is all wrapped up by June, well, he does have a sell rating on Apple and a price target of $75, so you tell me. That's a fun way to end. Hey, here's something fun. Bad poetry on tomorrow's macOS Ken. You don't want to miss that. We do this, well, I was going to say we do this every day, but the next few days are going to be weird. Tuesday and Wednesday of this week, we are doing macOS Ken live, 3:30 Pacific, 6:30 Eastern, other times, other places. I am thinking about dressing up, by which I mean dressing down for Wednesday's show. I'm not 100% on that, but I'm like 98% on that. So there's a good reason to check it out live or to catch the replay later. If you're catching this live, actually, or catching the replay on YouTube, it is also available as a podcast. So to catch it live or to catch the video replay, it's youtube.com/KenRay. To catch the audio podcast and go back and listen to all the old audio podcasts, just search for Mac OS Ken Live wherever you get podcasts. Cool thing about being here for the live thing is I hang out and talk to the people in the chat room when the show is over, which the show is about to be. So, come by and hang out for that. Hey, maybe we'll do a Secret Santa on Wednesday. Yeah, and you don't even have to buy anything. Just tell people what you brought, and we'll trade names. And oh, what fun! macOS can again tomorrow. This again tomorrow afternoon. Maybe in a few minutes. We'll find out, won't we? And I will talk to you soon. I brought nothing to drink and I'm parched. If anybody sees the waitress. How's everybody doing? Okay, Lewis is asking if I can say hello to his brother. And that's the best I'm going to do there, Lewis, because I think you might be playing. I don't own a Santa suit, Ronald, so no, I can't do that. All right, what's everybody saying back up here? Oh, I'm sorry I missed Webb at the beginning. Hey, Eric's here. Hey, Eric. That's a great idea, Matthew. It's a car. It's a computer. It's a tiny house. Are you getting it? That's an interesting idea, Randy. Randy says if the Apple car thing is going to happen, then Apple should have bought Tesla about 5 years ago, i.e. 2014. Well, that would have been 6 years ago. But here's the thing. You're never going to get Elon Musk to quietly slip away. Like, think about what happened with Beats. Apple bought Beats. With Beats, they bought the involvement of Dr. Dre, and they bought the involvement of Jimmy Iovine, neither of whom are with the company anymore. I don't think Dre is anyway. I know Jimmy Iovine's gone. So maybe you buy him as as like a way in. And certainly you buy the brand, and you buy the tooling, and you buy all that stuff. But Dre and Iovine were cool, like slipping out the back quietly. Elon Musk would just go start another company and yell about how much Apple was screwing up his company, it seems to me. No, John says your friend might not be using his Tesla's features very well. Multiple long road trips have been easy for me by using the built-in routing functions. No, he's just paranoid, dude. He's just he is one to worry. Where's everybody else? Ronald is saying that the plainness of the look of cars is due to aerodynamics. Yeah, it's still dull though. I have no idea, Ronald, what model he was driving. I want to say it was a 3. I don't know. Is that one of them? I feel like it was a 3, but I'm not sure. But the gull wings, and you can make it, play the song. I have not seen the activity awards, Eric. I don't know what that is. Send me an email, though, and let me know. Ronald, I don't disagree with you that Elon Musk makes Tesla what it is. Do you think he plays well with Apple? Who's been as big a personality? Was Steve Jobs. The only other personality that we heard about who might have been that big and that abrasive was Scott Forstall, and he's now producing Broadway shows. He might also be doing something in tech. I don't know, but it's hard for me to see Elon Musk playing well with Apple, unless they were just going to buy it just to own it. But then, why do that? Okay, so it was a Model X then. All right, that's what he was driving. Matthew says if they do make a car, they won't ship with a charging cable or a headset, and you won't be able to change the battery yourself. All of that is very funny. I like that idea. Who would put Johnny Ive to shame? Can you imagine how low to the ground a Johnny Ive car would be? So flat and thin. You could like drive under a Cybertruck. Media Cafe Online says Mac compares will be tough next summer, but Rod doesn't factor in the increased margins coming from the N1 chip, so that may offset unit sales, offset softer unit sales. Man, I'm sorry. I assume you're a man. I shouldn't do that. If you can explain to me Rod Hall's thinking, because I really thought when I read that one quote, I really thought it might just be that he's overly optimistic about how things are going to go next year. But I really do honestly think he's chosen a pessimistic take on Apple. And either he's going to be right one day, and 5 years later be able to say, "See, I told you so," or he's going to be Jun Zhang looking for another job at some point. I mean, if Apple ends up being what people focus on, he's been wrong. He's been either behind or just outright wrong on Apple for the past 2 years. And I understand there are different ways to view it. I understand there are different ways to look at things. But he's been demonstrably wrong. And it's fine. I mean, it's still interesting. And obviously, Goldman Sachs is getting something out of having him in that position because they keep him in that position. He started their coverage lagging 2 years ago and persists in so doing. And, he writes another note and people read his notes. It does offer, look, if everybody was saying the exact same thing and what everybody was saying was it's always going to be great and it's always going to be perfect, that's when you get blindsided. Somebody needs to be looking at possible negatives. I think there's a difference between looking at possible negatives because everybody writes their case, a bear case and a bull case. The constant bearishness from him is surprising. Ronald says a broken clock is right twice a day. I always say, unless it's constantly flashing 8888, in which case it's never right, ever. Until someday in the far future when we all go to an 8-based time measurement system. Right. I'm going to go turn this into a show, I think. Frank says negatives get more hits. Yeah, maybe. Could be. I mean, it depends. Yes. That's funny. Like that guy from Office Space. John says maybe Rod refuses to leave the office. Could have been fired and just won't go. And don't touch my stapler. Right? Matthew says everybody have a good night and stay safe. So Eric wants to know if anybody's store is closed. Well, all of them in California. Did yours? Did the one near you? Oh, see, Eric, I was saying goodbye and you started a conversation. Let me know what things are like in the Apple stores around your area, please. I'm really saying goodbye this time because I got to go do a thing and then do some other stuff. Thank you guys all for being here. I appreciate it. And yeah, take care. Talk to you soon.